11. Rodin pressed the screen exactly 1 hour and 45 minutes later.
Iceman.
The door clicked and Rodin made his way up. Joran was still in the same clothes, but Rodin detected soap. He'd washed. He looked fresher. He was holding out a chip.
Got it all, Iceman. Everything from the micro.
Any problems?
No. Guy who had the screen, he tried covering his tracks. But nothing I couldn't handle. Some of it gave me a nice little runaround, but it was all part of the fun.
Rodin nodded. You look at much of the data. At one time, Joran would have been offended by such an implication. But Rodin knew he was nosy, and Joran knew Rodin couldn't come down hard on him. He shrugged.
Can't help seeing things when they're right before your eyes. But it didn't make much sense to me. Lots of lists and stuff, names, dates. Looks like business records of some sort.
Then he grinned, no, leered.
Oh yeah. There are some pictures. Video too. Pretty interesting stuff. Didn't know you were into all that, Iceman.
Rodin could guess what they might be of. He would of course look at them, but what they contained would not hold much interest. Rodin was more intrigued with the reason for their existence. Ratcher's own pleasure. Extortion material. Calling cards from those wanting to work for him. Training sessions. He made no comment on the images. Anything else?
That's about it. Pretty straightforward.
Rodin took the chip. Thanks. The chip disappeared into his jacket, and he pulled out the envelope. He took out one of the pills, watching Joran's face. Excitement, anticipation, and a slither of confusion. Look on it as a bonus. I got you up early, and you came through for me. Joran reached his hand out, and Rodin dropped the pill into the center of his palm. Joran looked at it for a moment, before closing his fingers tightly.
Thanks, man. Wow. The Iceman melts a little.
Then the smile.
It's those vids, yeah? You are into all that.
Then the smile faded, and he took a step back.
But I won't let on. Or no. Don't worry. Whatever floats your boat, man. It's fine by me. I won't breathe a word.
Rodin hadn't said a word. It was amazing how staying quiet let others fill in the gaps. And they always imagined the worst.
You know, I wouldn't normally suggest this, but well, I can get hold of stuff. Legit, honest, well, semi-legit. But if you want other vids or other images, I can get hold of them. If that's what you're into.
Everyone had another deal on the side. Rodin shook his head. The bonus is because you deserve it. As for the rest, usual deal. The data's okay, I'll get the envelope to you. Joran nodded, but there was something hesitant in his actions. Rodin stood still, letting his eyes ask the question. Joran answered.
I saw some of the names. I wasn't prying, I mean it wasn't anything to me, was it? But it was all there, on my screen, and I couldn't help myself. And I think I know what some of the info is all about.
Rodin waited again. Joran wanted to get this off his chest. He needed to build up a little confidence, build up steam, and then he'd be away.
Okay, a lot of it isn't names. It's like labels or nicknames. And one of them, it's me. I suppose it could be someone else, but it's me. It's the name I use. I saw that, and well, you know what it's like, you see something about yourself and you can't help but look, can you? So I did. I had a closer look. And the dates matched, at least I think they did. I tend to lose track of stuff like that. Maybe I should use a list like this guy did.
Yes, he was rambling, but Rodin let him carry on. Once it was all out, he could arrange the pieces to give the full picture. Joran continued, arms waving as he talked. Something about a character called Partyman, and how this was the name he used. There were a few entries on this list, and the last one was about 2 weeks ago. Joran had been feeling lonely, something to do with a dry patch of work. He wanted a bit of fun, so he called the number. The dates seemed to tie up. He eventually slowed, and Rodin knew it was time to put this in order. So to clarify, he said, keeping his voice calm, a couple of weeks ago you hired a paid companion using the name Partyman, And this is all recorded on the micro screen. Joran nodded.
But it's not like I need to get my action that way, you know. I could go out there and find someone. It's just easier like this. No strings. You understand, don't you, Iceman?
Rodin nodded. He did understand. He also understood that it was safer. It was a contract and both sides had to keep up their side. Finding someone out there, as Joran had put it, meant possible ulterior motives. Whoever you found might be after more than a bit of company. Or they might see an opportunity to get more as the evening progressed. Or they might simply be deranged. Is the girl's name recorded?
No. Just a letter.
Any letter or something that has meaning?
I think it's the first letter of her name. She called herself Viella, and the letter was a V.
You use the same girl every time. There was some hesitation. Rodin understood Joran was talking about one time, and clearly didn't want Rodin to think he was in some way addicted, or that he couldn't get what he wanted without paying for it. But to be honest, Rodin didn't care. It was Joran's business what he did. If it was more convenient to use the service these girls provided, then why not? Eventually he spoke, but there was still some confusion. He shook his head but said,
Yeah. Viella, she gets me, you know. So it makes sense to stick with her. But like it's still new. It's only been a couple of times. It's not like I do this all the time. Probably once a month, once every couple of months. Just something to break the monotony, yeah?
Rodin held up his hand. I'm not judging, Joran. Your money, your time, your business. So other times with Viella are marked with a V.
Yeah. Like I say, I don't keep track of stuff like that, but I think the dates are accurate. And the ones before that.
Different girl. A nod.
But she had to go somewhere. Shame, because I really liked her. She was funny, you know. Sometimes I don't think we did anything. Just talked and drank. I mean, she drank. I think I smoked. Never much of a drinker. And the pills and stuff aren't as social. Take them before, yeah, gets you in the zone, you know? But it's not a good social thing to take them with someone. Doesn't last long enough for one thing. A smoke, you can take your time. And it was good 'cause she'd talk and I'd listen. She was good at that.
So she was your regular before Viella. The records, does her initial match her name?
Course. H for Helia. She was hot as well. You should have seen her, Iceman. You'd melt. Everyone would.
Popular girl?
I think so. Lots of her letter in the data. Busy girl. Bet she made a ton. Her and her friend.
Friend. Rodin had no idea how relevant this was, but if this Helia and others were involved with Ratch, it was a definite avenue to investigate. The more he knew, the better.
Yeah. Some girl called Effie. Helia asked if I wanted a double a few times, and it was tempting, you know? But I didn't want to complicate things. I like it one-on-one, yeah? And so I told her, you're all I need, baby. Something like that anyway. But I saw the data, couldn't help myself, yeah? Lots of times there are two letters, H and E went together quite a lot.
Two girls hired by one guy, or more of a party thing? Joran shrugged.
She never talked about her work. I guess they did parties together, but it could have been one guy. Or some chick. I mean, Helia and Effie would do a double act, so I can't see them being that fussy, can you?
Rodin thought of the couple, and how they'd both joined in with the girl. He wondered if they sometimes hired a couple of paid companions. He wondered, and he had no idea why this came to his mind, if they hired boys as well, and how Fallon took part in that. Each to their own. You pay for the service you require. You hire those who meet your requirements. A simple transaction. Rodin changed tack. So, you no doubt saw some of the other names in passing. Anything you recognize? Joran shook his head.
Like I say, it was all nicknames. Stuff like Harry, Giggles, Papa Joe. None of them sounded real.
So you gave the name Partyman? Joran looked embarrassed.
It was all I could think of that first time. I didn't want to give my real name just in case.
In case of what, he didn't say. But he didn't have to. For all the openness of their operations, paid companions still had a stigma. While there were many who would openly admit to using their services, many others didn't want it to be known. They would use aliases, and arrange to meet in neutral locations. Maybe this was through not wanting to appear less of a person in some way. A real man or woman would be able to find physical release without having to pay for it, or maybe it was because they were going behind someone else's back. Maybe they were already in a relationship, but wanted a little variety. Fine if the other person was okay with this, but some people still clung to monogamy. He thought of the couple again. Yes, some would look down on them for their evening activities, but Rodin saw absolutely nothing wrong with it. Maybe it even drew them closer together as a couple. It was something they could both enjoy at the same time. So what if it involved a paid companion? So many people gave false names, but some must have been more honest. None of the names looked real.
None that I saw.
Rodin thought for a moment. Maybe this was a good move on Ratch's part. Those who gave their real name would be assigned a moniker for the list, something that Ratch would know but would not necessarily give the client away to prying eyes. And the name could also be used as a code when talking to his workers. He was sure Ratch wouldn't want them talking, but it was hard to stop some people. If they dropped the wrong name in the wrong company, there could be consequences. By keeping to nicknames, this was avoided. Rodin was starting to like this Ratch. He seemed to be logical in his business. If the old man's daughter was one of his workers, Rodin thought it unlikely he had willingly caused her harm. Joran was bouncing from one foot to the other now. It looked like he needed the toilet, but Rodin suspected it was something more chemical. All this talk had delayed his payment. The little pill was waiting. Either the bonus or the one sitting in the timer box. Rodin nodded. Thanks for the information. He smiled in what he hoped was a friendly way. See you around.
Yeah, thanks. See yourself out, Iceman.
Rodin nodded and left, aware of movement even before he closed the door. Joran raced to take his prize. He'd be useless for the rest of the day, but he'd be happy. Iceman. The name struck him as he walked out onto the streets. Joran had called him that from the first time they met. At first, Rodin had been almost offended, but he saw the truth in it. He was cold towards others. But it was part of his job. He couldn't afford to have friends for so many reasons. They would demand his time. They would be a possible hold over him if someone wanted to take revenge. And more to the point, he didn't want to be friends with many of the people he met. What did he share in common with someone like Joran? Could he really see the two of them sitting down in the evening, chilling out? Drink, smoke pills? That wasn't Rodin's idea of fun. And would Joran want to go out for a run or even a walk? Would they work out together? He'd seen too many problems with friendships anyway. One person would say the wrong thing, the other would take offense and things would spiral out of control. Then there would be all the patching up, or the breaking up. So much effort. So much easier to keep things professional. No ties. It was something Rodin greatly appreciated about the life he led. He had freedom. Since bringing Leopold out of the dome, he had moved districts, leaving Jenna's for a while. Could he have done that so easily if he was tied to others? And an image flashed through his mind. Paskia. He hadn't thought of her for a while. No, that wasn't strictly true. She had come up in his mind, but he'd pushed her down. She wasn't a part of who he was at the moment, so there was no reason to dwell on her. Dwell on her? That sounded too much like a relationship thing. It wasn't like they had been close back in the dome. Memories surfaced. They'd been naked together, wrapped in each other's arms. But that had been different. The artist had been there, sketching away, putting them in other poses. He'd felt nothing. It was work. Yes, Paskia was physically attractive, that was clear to anyone, and was part of the reason the artist had selected her as his model. But that was as far as it went. She was damaged. She'd undergone correction, and part of her memories had been removed. Rodin felt sorry for her. He would go that far. Whatever she had done previous to the correction, having treatment to destroy a part of her mind seemed wrong. There was a whole section of her life, part of who she was, that she could no longer recall. No wonder she was so confused. She was drawn to Rodin. He knew that. Something about her past, he reminded her of an old friend or lover. But there was no future for them. He was not who she thought. She was drawn to Eli Terrell, the artist's assistant. But even when she discovered who he really was, Rodin, the mercenary from beyond the glass, contracted to remove a counselor she had not turned away. She had wanted to go with him. She wanted to leave the dome. She would never have coped in the real world. Too trusting. Too innocent. Rodin would have been constantly watching her back. And then, how would he have been able to watch his own? It would never have worked. She would never have understood his work. If she were with him now, how could he possibly carry on removing targets? How could he remove the couple, knowing she was waiting back at home for him? How could he track this wretch down? How could he work for someone like Malice, when there was a part of his life that was so vulnerable? No. Rodin was better off on his own. If the urge took him, if he allowed it to, he could always pay for company. But friendship? That wasn't for Rodin. A mercenary could never afford to let down his guard.